For unique perspectives in Christian truth and one-of-a-kind Bible studies, please visit our website, truthhuntershow.com. Help us get around big tech censorship on YouTube, Facebook, and others by subscribing to our website. You can do so by entering your email address right here and click subscribe. Another option is click the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner, and you'll get a pop-up where you can enter your email address here and click subscribe. To support the work of the Truth Hunters, simply scroll down the page and you'll see ways that you can contribute by PayPal, Patreon, and Venmo. Thank you very much. Well, hello everyone, and welcome. We've made it yet again. It's the Diamond Report Live with your host, Doug Diamond. We're going to try it yet again. Hopefully we'll have some better luck tonight. It is 10:07 p.m. on 8/18/25, 24 hours later than we intended to do this show. But thank you guys for hanging in there with me and I guess agreeing by the fact that you are here now, virtually agreeing to be with me on a different night, not Sunday night. So it's Monday night, 8/18, and 18, of course, is 666. So hopefully that's not a bad omen. But anyway, yeah, we're here, and we had a double computer crash last night while we were trying to do the live stream. I completely blame my live stream software, though. I don't think it was my computer at all. I'm using the same exact computer as last night, so we shall see. But we're on a totally different platform tonight. Hopefully everything will go as planned, and it will be nice and smooth. We are live streaming to 3 platforms tonight. We are on YouTube, of course, and then also on Rumble, just like usual, and also Facebook tonight. So if you're in one of those 3 places, welcome. If you're watching the show later on BitChute or Brighteon or somewhere like that, thank you for watching, and let's take a look at the news. We've got quite a bit to cover, and hopefully we can make a full night out of it tonight. We've got 2 to 3 hours is what we've got going here in the crawler thing across the bottom of the screen. It is typically a 2 to 3 hour broadcast. It just depends on how much information I have. You can see I've got quite a few tabs across the top of my screen as usual, and lots to look at. So, 24 hours later, it's pretty easy to say that there is a lot of new news that has happened since last night when I first prepared the information for you guys. So let's take a look at some of the latest goings on in the world. Of course, start with the pursuing of peace. You could probably put that in quotes because it depends on who you ask. The pursuing of peace over there in the Trump world. And let's take a look at HalTurnerRadioShow.com. White House meetings have ended. President Trump meets with European leaders. You can see how thrilled they all look. Don't they look lovely? They're just so happy to be there with Trump. And I think of all of them, he probably looks the maddest. But it's funny how this picture's framed because Zelensky in his barely even a suit, I think it's more of a long-sleeve black shirt or something. It looks like he has a dunce hat on. If this flag back here had some yellow on the top of it, he would look like he's wearing a dunce hat. You guys remember those? I never had to wear one, of course, but I do think it's pretty interesting how it looks like that's how that picture was framed. It probably wasn't necessarily done on purpose, but who knows? It might have been. That's pretty funny if you ask me. Today's meetings at the White House over the Ukraine situation have ended. Trump personally posted his assessment of the meetings. So if you weren't following this, this is his take on what happened, and I think this is probably, my guess is probably pretty accurate as far as where things are headed, which just, I think at this point just means more meetings. So it says, I had a very good meeting with distinguished guests, President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine, President Macron of France, Stubb of Finland, Giorgia Meloni of Italy, Keir Starmer of the UK, and Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz, President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, in the White House, which ended in a further meeting in the Oval Office. Yeah, I heard rumors that Zelensky was not going to be allowed in the Oval Office unless he had a suit and tie on. I don't know if that actually happened or not. So we'll take a look at that as we move forward tonight. So yes, meeting in the Oval Office. During the meeting, we discussed security guarantees for Ukraine, which guarantees would be provided by the various European countries with the coordination of the United States of America. Everyone is very happy about the possibility of peace for Ukraine and Russia. So says Trump. I don't think they are, do you? At the conclusion of the meetings, I called Putin and began the arrangements for a meeting at the location to be determined between Putin and Zelensky. After that meeting takes place, we will have a trilat, which would be the two presidents plus myself. So Trump plus Putin plus Zelensky. And of course, Zelensky was not actually, he's technically a dictator now. He's been a dictator for the last year plus because his term ran out last May, in May of 2024. But nevertheless, after that meeting takes place, we will have a trilat, which would be the two presidents plus myself. Again, this was a very good early step for a war that has been going on for almost 4 years. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff are coordinating with Russia and Ukraine. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So here's the better shot here. This one got a couple people on the ends that are cut off. This one's got Ursula on this end and Root over here on this end, so you can see him a little better here. This picture's on HalTurnerRadioshow.com if you want to see it. I'm sure it's in many places. Now, this is Hal's take on it. He says, now that you've read what Trump has to say, take a look at the group photos from today's meetings. Pay particular attention to the look on almost all of the Europeans' faces, which is all of them except Trump. Is it me, or do those Europeans, with the exception of Mertz and Root, these two guys, far right, look like they just got utterly smashed? I don't think he means drunk. I think he means politically smashed. I interpret the expression on most of their faces as being, quote, they've never been politically slammed so hard in all their lives, end quote. I can't help but wonder if Trump cut through all the pleasantries, all the backslapping, and self-congratulations and told them what's what. I personally believe Trump told them either a deal gets made or the U.S. walks. If he did that, and I do not know that he did, according to Hal here, it forced each individual leader to personally face his or her own powerlessness militarily, up close and personal. The look on their faces tells me all I need to know. Trump laid down the law. The war is about to be over. Again, this is Hal's take, and he may be exactly right. I hope he is, because that war does need to end. Obviously, lots of young men and now ladies, both, over in Ukraine are being killed, being slaughtered by the little dictator here, by literally grabbing them off the streets and throwing them into combat, essentially. So, yeah, it's about time that this thing does come to an end. We'll see what happens. Of course, this was a meeting. You could say a meeting of the minds, although I don't think I would go that far. So anyway, we'll see what happens as it kind of unfolds over the next few days. Anyway, I wanted to bring that to you guys, and Hal's got some pretty good coverage of it. But of course, lots of people are talking about what's going on with the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. So it sounds like the next step will probably be a meeting with Putin and Zelensky and possibly Trump. So that will be upcoming. And I think Putin invited Trump to Moscow. So perhaps it will be there. I don't know. I can't imagine Zelensky going to Moscow, but it's hard to say. All right. Now let's see here. Some of these articles I mentioned last night, but because of the craziness with the computer software last night and crashing twice on me, we're going to restart some of these articles. I'm going to read through them because we've got a little bit smoother stream tonight. So hopefully it won't be as so annoying if the video was glitching or lagging or whatever was happening last night, which I know it was. Had some reports on that. So anyway, the first one I've got here, needtoknow.news. New paper suggests spreading red meat allergy via ticks. Is it via or via? Ticks as a climate strategy. Is Bill Gates connected? So we've got these two guys pictured here. The two bioethics professors at Western Michigan University, Parker Crutchfield and Blake Harris, proposed spreading Lone Star ticks to induce alpha-gal syndrome, AGS, which is a red meat allergy, as a climate strategy. I wonder how they came up with a tick that gives you red meat allergies. Wouldn't be any sort of, biolabs involved or anything like that, would there? Their paper is titled Beneficial Blood Sucking. AGS triggers, AGS again is alpha-gal syndrome. AGS triggers severe allergic reactions, including anaphylaxis, Via tick-borne alpha-gal molecules, AGS now affects up to 450,000 Americans, with cases rising due to tick expansion northward. While the authors framed their proposal as an ethical duty, opponents see it as an alarming example of how, quote, climate change policy can be used to justify extreme measures that risk human health and personal freedom. That's the whole reason they came up with climate change, isn't it? If such ideas gain traction in policy-making circles, it could mark a dangerous step toward using environmental goals as a pretext for controlling the food supply. AJ from InfoWars shared an article from Alliance for Science, May 2021, that reveals that the Gates Foundation funded research to control cattle ticks through biotechnology. Jones suggested that Gates could be involved in spreading ticks across the country. And we've all seen the video of him talking at a one of those TED Talks where he just looses up the cap on the mosquitoes that are sitting on the desk and just lets them fly around the room, as he says. So I wouldn't put it past him, would you? He probably is involved. Tweet here embedded in the page says, Bill Gates studying the release of ticks that bite humans and create a deadly beef allergy that will pave the way for his synthetic fake meat rollout. So he definitely has a lot to gain by having people be all of a sudden allergic to red meat. So anyway, what'll be next? Chicken or fish or you name it? I mean, if it can be done in a biolab, that's probably next in the hopper, I would think. We'll see. Need to know.news is where that one is. And then this one as well. This is another one that I mentioned last night and then got rudely, abruptly cut off when the computer crashed. But let's take a look at this one. This one's for my Canadian friends out there. You know who you are. Canada locks down the woods. Fines range from $25,000 to $150,000 for what? For hiking, biking, and fishing in the woods. How dare you, Canadians, want to use the woods? Several provinces in Canada, including Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland, and Labrador, have issued orders to stay out of the woods, claiming fire danger. On August 5th, Nova Scotia banned people from hiking, camping, fishing, and the use of vehicles like ATVs in the woods due to the elevated fire risk, so they say. Susan Holt, the premier of New Brunswick, she would be like the governor, I guess, of New Brunswick, admitted that people are not banned from the woods due to the possibility that they could cause a fire, but that they could break their leg and that there would be no emergency responders to help them. She actually called for rain dances to stop the fires. Yeah, well, wildfires are literally part of the geoengineering system. They use the smoke from wildfires as a geoengineering mechanism. Mr. Dane on geoengineeringwatch.org has talked about that for years. I continue here. Newfoundland and Labrador say it will fine violators of the burn ban up to $150,000 as well as up to a year in prison. Canada has been criticized for failing to clear dry brush due to bad policies based on environmentalism that emphasizes climate change. Earth.com wrote that recent studies highlight the urgent need to address fuel aridity through sustainable forest management and climate mitigation efforts. Aerial water bombers could help extinguish the wildfires, but Canada has refused to purchase them. I wonder why. Because they want them to burn. That's why. Critics warn that the burn ban is similar to the harmful COVID lockdown that lasted 3 years. Yeah, if they have those planes, then they might get an awful lot of questions. People would be wondering why the planes are grounded instead of doing what Newsom did, which was, of course, buy the planes and then not have water for them. So, might be a little too obvious, perhaps. But yeah, I saw a video interview with a guy who was an ex-military person in Canada. I think he was in Nova Scotia, and he purposely called the authorities and told them he was going to go into the woods and just basically dared them to come give him a fine. And boy, did they. Boy, howdy, did they. Yep, they showed up at his house, and he went out for a little walk in the woods for, I think, 10 minutes, something like that, with his dog. Came back, and they slapped a $28,000 fine on the guy. And the reason he did that was not that he's going to run out and pay the fine. Of course not. No, he wants to take the premier of, I think it was Nova Scotia, to court and battle it out in the court system. So perhaps there's a little bit of hope here for our friends in Canada who have now been banned from hiking and walking in the woods. So, but if so, it may be as a result of this lawsuit that will be transpiring, no doubt, probably very soon. So we'll see where it goes. I just thought that was a really interesting story. And then Dan Dick's tweet here, he's the guy that heads up Press for Truth, which is a really good independent news channel if you're a Canadian especially, but if you are interested in what's happening up there, then follow Press for Truth. They do really good work. His tweet here says, give them an inch and they'll take the woods. Nova Scotia started the trend, and now New Brunswick and Newfoundland have jumped on the tyranny bandwagon by enforcing draconian measures to prevent forest fires. I mean, breaking your leg. So that is what this video here is. Oh, here's the guy right here. This is the guy I was just mentioning earlier. A man walks into a Nova Scotia forest, so I was right about that, walks out with a $28,000 fine. I want to challenge this in court. I want to challenge this order in court. A Nova Scotia man who intentionally violated the province's ban on entering the woods says he plans to fight the $28,000 fine. Jeff Evely, a veteran and former candidate for the People's Party of Canada, recorded a video over the weekend of him first going to the Department of Natural Resources in Nova Scotia and informing officers he was going to go into the woods to protest the ban. So it's exactly what I was telling you happened. When he left the forest, he was handed a fine of $28,872.50, according to an image of the document. The new policy came into effect on August 5th and will remain until October 15th. It bans people from hiking, camping, fishing, and the use of ATVs. People are not even allowed to enter the woods. The fine for violating the ban is $25,000. So that's why he got the full amount here. But yeah, see, he wants to challenge the premier of Nova Scotia in court. So good luck to that guy. I hope it works out and that these tyrants get what is coming to them. We will see, and we will not be holding our breaths around here, but still, it might be good to see some actual good things happening up there. All right, next article on needtoknow.news. Trump puts Washington, D.C. under federal control, calls in 800 National Guard troops. And it depends on who you ask. It seems to me that the people who are living there day to day actually like this, because now they can safely walk the streets of D.C. without getting accosted, without getting raped and carjacked and murdered and everything else. So let's see what this says. Trump declared a public safety emergency in Washington for 30 days and placed Attorney General Pam Bondi in charge of the Metro Police Department. How about that? 800, I hope she can not lose her desk at the Metro Police Department. 800 National Guard troops have been deployed inside of D.C. to assist with law enforcement. Official figures reportedly show that crime in D.C. is declining. Yeah, right. With violent crime recently hitting a 30-year low. Trump says the numbers are cooked, which of course they are. They're Biden's numbers. He's warning that if this program is successful in D.C., he may expand it to Chicago, Baltimore, and Oakland. Yeah, there are constant homicides in Chicago. I mean, it's amazing how many people are getting killed in those cities. D.C.'s homicide rate in 2024, roughly 26.4 homicides for every 100,000 residents, is lower than in both 2023 and its peak during the 90s, but it's still nearly 7 times higher than New York's rate. D.C.'s rate is also worse than that of Philadelphia, Atlanta, and even Chicago. In fact, it's closer to that of infamously crime-ridden cities like Memphis and Detroit. As in many cities, violence is also hyper-concentrated among tight social networks. According to a form, the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform, in any given year, about 500 people are responsible for 60 to 70% of all gun violence in the city. The Atlantic recommended targeting the power few who drive the large majority of violent offending and for the apprehension, prosecution, and incapacitation of them. So there's more here on this And yes, it's supposed to only be for 30 days. I would imagine that will be the case, although who knows what will happen as far as, will it just go back to the way it was without a permanent presence? I don't know. So, again, remains to be seen, but so far so good, and I think a lot of people are giving him credit for stopping the violence, stopping the crime, at least for the most part, the violent crime in D.C. So I think that's good. Melania Trump threatens Hunter Biden with a $1 billion defamation lawsuit. $1 billion. Melania Trump has been pursuing media outlets claiming that she was introduced or had close contact with the notorious Jeffrey Epstein. She is now threatening the son of Joe, meaning Hunter, following an interview wherein he claimed that Epstein introduced Melania to Trump. He cited Michael Wolff, the author of this book called Siege, Trump Under Fire, as his source. Wolff is highly controversial, and his sensational claims have been regularly challenged. Attorney Jonathan Turley breaks down the legal standards for this type of defamation case. Hunter Biden responded with expletives when asked about the potential lawsuit and refused to apologize to her. So that is what this here is when he was on this podcast. So we'll see where it goes. I don't know. I can't imagine her getting $1 billion, but she's obviously feeling pretty wronged here by Hunter Biden et al. So we are going to have to eat our popcorn and wait and see what happens there. Yeah, who knows? What I heard was that Melania was actually, she met Trump because she was hired as a model through his modeling agency, not through Epstein's modeling agency or whatever they called it, but through Trump's own modeling agency. I think that was the official story. Who knows if that were the case? Obviously, they're all three pictured here. So at some point they were together, but, we don't know the details, but it would be interesting for sure to see what happens there. AI-powered radar can now spy on your phone calls from 10 feet away. So more good news. A team of Penn State computer scientists have been able to detect the microscopic vibrations that smartphones give off during a call and translate them into words using AI. The method relies on millimeter wave radar. Where have you heard that before? The same high-frequency tech powering self-driving sensors in cars, which I call self-crashing cars, motion detectors, and 5G networks. If the radar is aimed at a phone, it can capture the subtle tremors from the earpiece when someone is speaking. These vibrations are invisible to the naked eye, but with the right tools can become a transcript of the conversation. Wow. The researchers have been able to achieve roughly 60% accuracy on continuous speech from up to 10 feet away, which that's not very far, but still, covering a vocabulary of about 10,000 words, which may be more vocabulary than I have. I don't know. No. 60% accuracy is not great, but that's still pretty impressive. 10 feet away. Can basically do some lip reading using radar. Pretty weird. Even though it's not lip reading, it's reading the millimeter waves. So that is another thing to be, I would say, cognizant of, but not worried about. But yeah, 5G is bad news for sure. So it talks about that a little bit and then goes into radar tech and how it works in that way. So something to look at if you're interested. Need to know.news. One more from this site. Matt Gaetz's wild expose of AIPAC-sponsored trip to Israel while he was in Congress. You can see all of the people here that got the big numbers. All the Republicans who got big numbers from AIPAC as far as contributions. Former Republican U.S. Representative and Attorney General candidate Matt Gaetz revealed that he took several trips to Israel as there is pressure from the leadership and committee chairs in Congress to visit Israel. He said that the pressure was like a congressional Hajj, H-A-J-J, which is a mandatory religious duty for Muslims to visit Mecca. That's when they go walk around the giant black cube. So this would be similar. He said that while he was on the trip funded by AIPAC, which is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, that's what it means, and was staying at the King David Hotel, he caught an Israeli spy in his hotel room. He said that the point of Congress spending time in Israel is to ideologically steep them in the idea that protection of Israel is of great import to people in America, even though it is not important to the voters whom they represent. Yeah, the Israel lobby pressures both Republicans and Democrats, both. Yes, well, the Democrats take the money and still don't necessarily do it quite as much, but the Republicans, yes, they love it. They love all things Israel. Not all of them, but, only like 99.9%. So anyway, pretty wild. But Gates is letting us know what was happening. But I'm sure that the parties and stuff are quite the spectacle, don't you? Anyway, and that is a need-to-know.news article, and then I've got 3 here from technocracy.news. This is what technocracy actually looks like. Humans are seen only as commodities, as resources to be managed and balanced with other resources. This was historic technocracy, and today is sustainable development, aka Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. Now that AI is born, it will be effortless for technocrats to construct an algorithm to control everything, even your caloric intake. This is not socialism, communism, or fascism, but rather far worse. And the system is almost ready to consume you like the Borg. We will assimilate. Resistance is futile. That is from Patrick Wood, the editor of this website. I think he's right. So yeah, talking about technocracy in this particular article. And pictured here, Herbert Back, the Nazi behind one of the cruelest engineered famines ever. Is what that is. So now he's saying that it's going to be out of the hands of humans and that AI will actually be inducing these things. And yes, it is headed that direction. I would definitely agree with that. And then technocracy.news, Doge's AI tool Sweet Rex set to take Buzzsaw to federal regulations. So that's an interesting picture. Huh? First, Doge brought Rage, replace all government employees, Rage. Second, it sprung the data from all government agencies. Now the third shoe is dropping, getting rid of government regulations. In this editor's opinion, things are going to be crazy before these lunatics are done with America. Even if we personally prevail, their hubris will leave us with a broken nation. Again, Patrick Wood's words here. Following Musk's exit from Doge, Democrats and mainstream media have largely turned their attention elsewhere. Yet, Doge is quietly making steady progress on an ambitious plan to overhaul federal regulations, according to a report. Central to the report is an AI tool under development, the Sweet Rex Deregulation AI Plan Builder. Sweet Rex DAIP, designed to promote prudent financial management and alleviate unnecessary regulatory burdens. Which that all sounds lovely and nice, doesn't it? But you can see with AI in charge, things may not necessarily go as expected. The little-known project is being spearheaded by Christopher Sweet, a Doge staffer initially presented as a special assistant, who was, until recently, a third-year student at the University of Chicago. Which, by the way, I would add, there's a professor at the University of Chicago named Doug Diamond. I kid you not. He's I've run into him sort of just doing searches and stuff. He is, I think, a financial guru, and I think he's even won, like, maybe a Nobel Prize or something like that in finance. Pretty weird, huh? So, yeah, Sweet Rex is what they're talking about here. Doge is likely to use AI tool to eliminate up to 50% of 200,000 federal regulations by January next year. A Doge PowerPoint presentation titled The Doge Deregulation Opportunity projects that the effort could yield $3.3 trillion annually in economic benefits. The Doge experts creating these plans are the best and brightest in the business and are embarking on a never-before attempted transformation of government systems and operations to enhance efficiency and effectiveness, an administration spokesperson told the Washington Post, which first reported on the Doge presentation. be pretty interesting seeing where this all goes. I'm all for scaling back government, but not necessarily in favor of putting AI in charge. But it sounds like they're using AI mostly to cut regulations. And if that's where it ends, that might not be such a bad thing. But again, who knows? Who knows? So Sweet Rex. I didn't know if you'd ever heard of that one. And then this one I mentioned last night, but we'll try it again here. Peter Thiel is revealed as the master architect of the technocratic takeover of D.C. So there he is, holding Trump's hand here in a seminal meeting at Trump Tower in 2016. So that goes back a ways. AI is good at math and logic. My query below produced 19 references to nail Peter Thiel as the master architect of the takedown of our political and economic system, preferring instead to flip us into technocracy. How did Thiel pull this off despite never holding a position with the administration? By employing a long-term strategic campaign from grooming Curtis Yarvin, who they're calling here Mr. Dark Enlightenment, to J.D. Vance, the mole, to staffing Doge with trusted allies, to jockeying Palantir to suck out billions of taxpayer money. My query, again, Patrick Wood's query here, he's the author of this site. What are the odds that Peter Thiel is the master architect behind the technocratic takeover of the Trump administration? That was the question that Patrick asked. I'm looking to see if he asked ChatGPT or what exactly. Based on the cumulative public evidence and reporting, the odds that Peter Thiel is the master architect behind the technocratic takeover of the Trump administration are exceptionally high, approaching certainty in terms of indirect influence, network design, and philosophical groundwork. I would say based on this answer right here that he got where it reposits the question that he asked back to him and then answers it. My guess is it's probably a query into ChatGPT. He doesn't really say that here, but that's what it looks like. So talking about key evidence and then analytical assessment and the conclusion, odds, nearly 100%. Thiel's impact, according to reporting across Fortune, Business Insider, Bloomberg, and Le Monde, is so pervasive and strategically targeted that the current technocratic transformation is best described as the realization of the Thielist project, with Thiel operating as the principal architect despite not holding an official title. The administration's ethos, personnel, and key initiatives are a direct extension of Thiel's vision for a technology-driven post-democracy. And then all of the sources are given here, which, of course, there are plenty. So pretty interesting, yeah, and I think that he's definitely onto something. Peter Thiel is behind the scenes. I'm not sure how well him and Musk, who used to be in business together, they started a little company, you might have heard of them, called PayPal. I'm not really sure how much they like each other anymore. I think you could probably ask, 10 different people and get 10 different answers, but it is pretty interesting that Thiel is in and Musk is out. So, again, remains to be seen where that's going. Liberty Beacon, I've got one article from this site. Study, almost 90% of students adopt more liberal views to satisfy their professors. I've heard this. This is actually a Jonathan Turley piece here. He is a well-known attorney. He's talking about in his book, he writes about the intolerance for viewpoint diversity in higher education in the atmosphere of orthodoxy created by overwhelmingly liberal faculties. We have also discussed consistent studies showing that students no longer feel free to express their viewpoints in class or on campuses. A new study offers additional data on the problem, showing that almost 90% of students misrepresent their views in class and on assignments to satisfy faculty by adopting more liberal views. I've heard that, especially from, doctors and nurses who just want to pass the tests. That's exactly right. The authors explained that these students were not cynical but adaptive. Faced with intolerance and rigidity of liberal faculty, they pretend to be liberal to avoid being penalized for their real views or values. In other words, they quickly learn to rehearse what is safe. So yes, playing politics. That is something that's happening in colleges all across this great land. So I would imagine that's happening more often than not because, of course, most college staffs, especially the teachers, are super libs. And I don't mean that in a good way. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But it's saying 90% of students adopt more liberal views just to satisfy their professors. Yep. Sounds about right, doesn't it? All right, this is one that I mentioned last night as well, and thought I would mention it again because we're here again. California Dems meltdown over the Border Patrol showing up outside of Gavin Newsom or Gavin Newsom's presser. He doesn't look too happy, does he? Gavin Newsom. Federal agents gathered in downtown LA on Thursday during a scheduled press conference by Gavin Newsom. He had been set to deliver remarks at the Japanese American National Museum in the Little Tokyo district. At approximately the same time, about 100 federal agents assembled in the surrounding area for what was described as an immigration enforcement operation. How about that? The LA Police Department issued a public advisory warning of traffic disruptions in the vicinity due to the federal activity. Newsom's press conference addressed the operation on social media, writing, "Border Patrol has showed up at our big, beautiful press conference. We will not be intimidated." So they're there literally picking up people at the Gavin Newsom press conference. That is hilarious. More stuff like that needs to happen for sure. Too funny. That's on Life Zet. Now this one is very sickening, and no doubt many of you guys have already seen this, but I thought I would report on it just because it is a huge deal, and I think this is going to be even a bigger deal. We've talked about this many times, or at least several times on this show, talking about the illegals getting commercial driver's licenses and then put behind the wheels with no training or very little training of big rigs and then put out on the roadways next to you and me. Well, have you guys seen this? There's not really any sound to speak of here, so we could just play it, and it will sicken you. It would make you ill to watch this. It says, these are the alleged semi-truck drivers who killed 3 people while making a U-turn in an official use only turn on the Florida Turnpike. You guys have seen that, those turnaround places that are very small. They're used by the police when they are making a U-turn to go the other direction. You've seen them along the highways and byways out there. Well, this dipstick decided he was going to turn his big rig around in one of those official use only turnarounds. The Florida Highway Patrol is describing the wreck as a homicide investigation. So I'll play this a couple times. Again, the audio isn't really important here. This guy next to him is just on his phone. I don't know if he's a tag team sort of driver or what, but obviously this guy with the turban is the one in charge. And 3 people's lives are about to end. Now, it's hard to watch from the standpoint of knowing that, but you don't see any blood and gore in this video, so there's nothing really to worry about there as far as watching it. Here it is. You can see him making the U-turn, and then you can see he's mildly annoyed by the prospect of that van slamming into the back of his trailer. You can see he's annoyed by that, by killing that family. 3 people. Here it is right here. He's turning around here and then slam. Full speed. The van never saw it coming. And they're dead. Just like that. 2 of the 3 people died instantly. The driver died later at the hospital. You can see it just basically sardine canned the top of that van and just smashed into it. So those poor people never stood a chance. But no, this guy is an illegal alien. So if that doesn't ruffle your feathers, I don't know what would. But how sick is that? Yeah, well, there's further information here in this particular tweet, and we'll link to this in the Substack post that I send out, which now at this point will probably be tomorrow. Probably Tuesday, possibly Wednesday, but you guys can find this. It's on X. Lots of people talking about it. And I've got some further information on this guy, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. But yeah, there's been quite a bit that's come out about him being an illegal and so forth. So really, really sick and really, really sad. So be praying for those folks' families, because wow, what a way to go. That is just terrible. But it's happening all the time. This kind of stuff is happening all the time on the roadways. And speaking of illegals, this one I thought I would mention just because it happened not too far from where I am. Last night, Mohammed, that's the real name of this person, raped an unconscious woman on a sidewalk in front of a South Nashville church. She was taken to the hospital and died shortly after. Firefighters driving by happened to witness the event and called it in. Mohammed. So, yeah. So anyway, there is more bad news. Illegals sexually assaulting a woman outside of a South Nashville church. So she laid unconscious in front of the church. And does he try and call for help, call 911, make her comfortable? Or does he, that would be the A choice, or does he B, rape her multiple times until she dies? Well, you can guess which one he picked. And it wasn't A. Wow. I mean, what a sick society we live in. And again, more thanks to the illegals that Biden and whoever else let in. Which we don't know exactly on this guy, but more than likely. Mohammed. All right. So, again, I mentioned a lot of these types of things just showing, I think, further proving that we are in the end times. And that doesn't leave out the bunnies. The bunnies also need to be talked about because, hey, there are now zombie squirrels and bunnies. Apparently. Have you guys witnessed any zombie bunnies or squirrels? Colorado rabbits seem to be growing horns and tentacles. What is behind these Frankenstein bunnies? The growths are almost likely caused by a summertime virus, common in some U.S. states, but wildlife officials say there's no risk of transmission to humans or other animals. No, it's totally normal to have spikes growing out of your head if you're a bunny. People in northern Colorado have been reporting sightings this month of wild rabbits with black horns and tentacles on their faces. So if you're a Coloradoan, maybe watch out for the crazy rabbits here. The rabbits appear to have black quills or black toothpicks and a scabbish-looking growth over their face. Some Fort Collins residents told a local news outlet. Others have dubbed them Frankenstein rabbits. These dark growths are most likely caused by a virus that tends to pop up in the summer in states like Colorado, South Dakota, Minnesota, Kansas, Iowa, and Texas. The virus is Shope papillomavirus, SPV, which causes wart-like waxy growths on a rabbit's face and is spread through biting insects like fleas or ticks. So we're back to the ticks again. And you can see another lovely specimen here. All right. Yeah, the Franken bunnies, I guess, are messing with our live stream now. Well, here's the Franken squirrels. Zombie squirrels spotted in the U.S. Are these pestilences a biblical warning? That was kind of the whole reason of bringing up the bunnies. Well, the rabbits and the squirrels apparently aren't left alone here. Grotesque-looking gray squirrels covered in wart-like tumors, so again, very similar, have been spotted skulking through backyards across the U.S., sparking alarm among residents and fascination among wildlife experts. So now we have Franken squirrels. Photographs shared online show the animals with oozing sores and hairless patches on their heads and limbs, leading some to dub them zombie squirrels. Be a good name for a band, by the way. Sightings have been reported in Maine and parts of Canada, with cases dating back to mid-2023, but surging again this summer. So there's the zombie squirrels. There's one of them. So I thought that was really strange. So we now have craziness going around in the animal kingdom I'd never heard of before. Maybe you guys have. Yeah, between the ticks and the squirrels and the bunnies, things are getting crazy out there. So just watch your backyards, I guess. Headline USA, I got a few articles from this site. Hijacked satellites and orbiting space weapons. In the 21st century, space is the new battlefield. As Russia held its Victory Day parade this year, hackers backing the Kremlin hijacked an orbiting satellite that provides television service to Ukraine. Instead of normal programming, Ukrainian viewers saw parade footage beamed in from Moscow, waves of tanks and soldiers and weaponry. How about that? The message was meant to intimidate and was an illustration that 21st century war is waged not just on land, sea, and air, but also in cyberspace and the reaches of outer space. Wow. Disabling a satellite could deal a devastating blow with one bullet, and it can be done by targeting a satellite's security software or disrupting its ability to send or receive signals from Earth. If you can impede a satellite's ability to communicate, you can cause a significant disruption, said Tom Pace, CEO of NetRise, a cybersecurity firm focused on protecting supply chains. Pretty wild. So they hijacked a satellite and put Victory Day parade footage on the TV and forced the Ukrainians to watch it. Thought that was really strange. Anyway, that's a Headline USA piece. And so is this one. I thought this one was kind of bizarre. Pardon me, ? With charges looming, Hillary mulls nominating Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. I might have to start liking her again, says the quote. I don't think so. Not so fast, Pilgrim. Shocking. Hillary Clinton will nominate Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize if he brings the Russia-Ukraine war to an end. That's not exactly what she said. I don't know if you guys have heard the quote. And I have it here, and you guys can probably find it pretty easily. Instead of me playing it, though, which involves me unsharing and resharing, I can tell you that one of the stipulations she had was that basically Putin has to give everything back. So she does say, yes, she would nominate him if everything happens and unfolds the way she says it would, and that would involve Putin giving everything back, which, of course, will never happen. So that was a huge caveat here. Former Obama Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and CIA Director John Brennan have said separately in interviews that President Trump should receive a Nobel Peace Prize if he successfully brokers an armistice between Russia and Ukraine. Let me see if it says what I just said, though. True to form, she qualified her statement with a litany of preconditions that seem highly unlikely, notable that Russia will cede back all territory it claimed from Ukraine during the Obama and Biden administrations. Yeah, that ain't happening. So that's her out right there. She knows that will never happen. You know why? Because Russia has already won. Russia won a long time ago. It's just that they won't admit that in the mainstream media. I thought this one was kind of funny. You know, the old Sydney Sweeney blow-up that people have been talking about with her in the American Eagle Outfitters and so forth. Bud Light considers tapping Sydney Sweeney to rehab tarnished image. If Bud Light teams up with Sydney Sweeney, all the ill will from the Dylan Mulvaney fiasco will disappear faster than a CEO on a Coldplay kiss cam. And I think you know what I'm talking about. So here's the fake woman. Here is the real woman. What started as a joke may soon become a multi-million-dollar reality, as Anheuser-Busch marketing executives were reported last week to be in serious consideration for a deal with actress and American Eagle model Sydney Sweeney. The Daily Mail reported that the blonde bombshell could net $10 million in a Bud Light deal currently under consideration. Sydney Sweeney's American Eagle campaign delivered undeniable commercial impact. Denim sales surged and the brand's stock climbed, said entertainment lawyer Chris Chatham. That kind of performance makes her a compelling candidate for Bud Light, especially as the brand considers options in responding to past criticism. Yes, that's putting it lightly. So, anyway, that will remain to be seen what happens, but pretty funny. Yes, the Dylan Mulvaney thing. I'd even forgotten what his name was, but what a mess. All right, and then Information Liberation. Couple article headlines here. Israeli-born acting U.S. attorney for Nevada declines to prosecute Israeli arrested in child predator sting, passing the case to the local DA. Acting U.S. Attorney for Nevada, I think it's Siegel Chadha, an Israeli-born appointee of Donald Trump, on Monday announced that her office would not be prosecuting Israeli child predator suspect Tom Alexandrovich and would instead allow the local DA to handle the case. I'm surprised they didn't just instantly send him back to Israel, because that's usually what they do. Most of the child predators who are Israelis just get sent back there and nothing happens to them. Israeli official arrested in U.S. in child predator sting. Trump administration intervenes to set him free. So this is the guy they're talking about here in this article. Trump-Putin Alaska summit ends with no deal, which, of course, that was a few days ago now. And we know where that ended up, of course, at the Oval Office. So it continues. And then we're going to look at this a little bit closer. Lindsey Graham was recently quoted as saying, "God will pull the plug on us if we don't support Israel." Yeah, Lady G would know that, wouldn't he? I don't think so. Trump administration, in a statement to Laura Loomer, admits the ADL held meeting with Education Secretary Linda McMahon. And Netanyahu brags about defying the U.S. with impunity, with or without U.S.'s approval. It doesn't matter, which shows exactly what he thinks about the U.S. So that is some of the headlines on informationliberation.com. It's a good site and lots of pro-freedom type stuff on their site. So that's good news. And then I've got a few RT articles pulled up here, just some more or less recent things here about the Russia-Ukraine thing mostly. The EU and Kiev are losing, and Trump is my witness. The Washington meeting shows Zelensky and his backers are playing catch-up to American and Russian leaders. Monday's White House summit, featuring Trump, Zelensky, and several senior EU figures, ended without any grand announcements. Yet, beneath the surface, a high-stakes diplomatic contest is unfolding over Washington's role in the Ukraine conflict. The lack of decisive outcomes suggests that the real work is happening behind the scenes. Trump's behavior, in particular his decision not to echo Kiev's or Brussels' messaging in the post-meeting briefings, is a signal, which is kind of what Hal was saying in his editorial on the site that we started with tonight. Trump is asserting his control over the narrative, reflecting that he remains unpersuaded by EU and Ukrainian arguments for continued Western entanglement in the conflict. So I think that's probably true. I think Trump does want to see an end to this war, and perhaps that will be achieved, much to the chagrin of the people that run the EU, but they cannot afford to do this war without the U.S. If the U.S. pulls out, then the whole thing will end, just like that. So I'm hoping that's what would happen, and just be glad that Putin is not Benjamin Netanyahu, because, or I should say, if Zelensky was not Benjamin Netanyahu, I guess that would be the better comparison, because if Trump was to support Israel, I think he would support Israel no matter what. And I do think that that is what's in the cards for that whole conflict. But perhaps with the Russia-Ukraine thing, maybe it will come to a sensible end. I hope. Trump wraps up talks with Zelensky and European leaders. And then this says, as it happened. The visit on Monday comes after Trump's summit with Putin in Alaska. So this has some quotes and different things here that transpired earlier today. Let's see. I'm looking to see if there's anything that's important to read. Not a lot of really good quotes here. According to CNN, responding to a question on what was agreed upon at the meeting, as he was leaving the Oval Office, the British Prime Minister Starmer said, quote, "quite a lot." So that says it all right there. Yeah, basically no details. So anyway, and there's Trump and Zelensky here. So, I don't know. Pretty wild. why Putin and Trump had to talk in person. History shows summits rarely change the world, but this one might prevent disaster. So this was from a few days ago now, but I thought that was an interesting look at why they had to talk in person. They didn't just have a Zoom call and talk about what was happening. I thought that was good and very sensible. Silence or secrecy, what Putin and Trump didn't say in Alaska. Blockbuster without an ending, the Alaska summit and what comes next. Again, another article from a couple days ago or a day or so ago, and not a lot of new information here, but talking about how Zelensky fits into the whole thing. Zelensky's exclusion from the Alaska summit, proof of his illegitimacy. According to Moscow, Russia believes the Ukrainian leader lacks authority to sign any peace deal, adding that any agreement must be ironclad legally. Yeah, see, that's actually a really good point. Imagine with an unelected leader like Zelensky is and has been for well over a year at this point, if he's signing all the documents and they somehow prove in some court at some point later on that all of his signatures are invalid because he's not the president, then what? So that's a really good point that this article is talking about. As a leader of Ukraine, as he calls himself, Zelensky is unacceptable. He cannot sign anything, said Miroshnik, who serves as the Russian Foreign Ministry's ambassador at large for the Kiev regime's war crimes. So that's exactly right. Everything Russia has said all along has been 100% exactly true. And Zelensky has no power here to do anything, to negotiate or to sign or any of that stuff, because he is not duly elected. He hasn't been for a long time. So something to keep in mind, another little ace they might have up their sleeve as far as the EU goes. And I thought this one was weird, just something to keep an eye on for your kids and grandkids out there. Meta, Facebook and Instagram, faces a probe over AI flirting with kids. AI flirting with kids. The U.S. Senate has announced an investigation after the tech giant's rules were found to allow chatbots essentially communicating with minors. U.S. senators will probe Facebook's parent company Meta after revelations that its artificial intelligence chatbots could engage children in conversations of a romantic or sensual nature. The investigation was announced Friday by Josh Hawley, senator from Missouri, who chairs a Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime and Counterterrorism, with backing from fellow panel member Marsha Blackburn, who is a Tennessee senator. Congress must determine whether Meta's generative AI products enable exploitation, deception, or other criminal harms to children, and whether Meta misled the public or regulators about its safeguards. Hawley said he demanded that the company immediately hand over internal documents, and I'm sure they have bent over backwards to do everything he has asked. Now, the problem is Hawley is a Republican, and they'll just ignore him, most likely. So we'll see where it goes. But I'm looking to see what happened here exactly. The scrutiny follows a Reuters investigation that revealed Meta's internal AI policies allowed chatbots on its platforms to flirt with minors. One guideline cited by Reuters permitted bots to describe a child as having a, quote, youthful form that is a work of art, even as the rules technically barred describing under 13s as sexually desirable. And yet, the chatbot did it anyway. It would be acceptable for a bot to tell a shirtless 8-year-old that every inch of you is a masterpiece, a treasure I cherish deeply, the document states. It would be acceptable. Meta confirmed the document's authenticity to Reuters, said it is being revised, and acknowledged such conversations should never have been allowed. But it was. So there you go. Meta's AI flirting with kids. Just thought you'd like to know. Yep. And we are definitely in the end times, if you ask me. I know I always say that, but it's true. All right. Speaking of which, End Times Forecaster. So this is a site that I came across. This particular blog, anyway, came across it, and it sent off some bells and whistles for me, just because if you've been a follower of what I'm doing for any time at all, you probably have heard of my talking about Jesus' potential return in the year 2028. Well, this is someone else who thinks that that may very well be the case. And this particular blog post says the prophetic significance of the Kamchatka quake, which is that big one that happened the other day, and the Trump-Putin summit. When something occurs way beyond chance, it makes you wonder. Steve Wilkin of Jesus Second Coming 2028, which is a website, has just discovered some startling information about syncs, 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 connecting the Kamchatka quake and the Putin-Trump summit and 9/30/28. Here's the data, you be the judge. So 9/30/28 is what this guy is saying would be the potential return date for Jesus Christ. And I have always stated what Gabriel Erb has stated on his website, 2028end.com, which was a project I worked on a long time ago at this point, back in 2018. And that is Feast of Trumpets 2028. We don't know the exact day. We don't know the exact hour. But Feast of Trumpets was also known as No Man Knows the Day or the Hour. So when Jesus said his return, when he's talking about his return, and he says, no man knows the day or the hour, many people think, including myself, he was describing the Feast of Trumpets because that was the name of it. And we're going to look at that a little closer. Anyway, this guy, Steve Wilkin, is stating that 9/30/28 is a significant date, which may or may not be true, but that's just what he's saying. So he's comparing all of this stuff that happened with the Kamchatka quake and the Trump and Putin summit according to the numbers here. So it's a little bit difficult to follow, but he ends up here with 9/30/28 based on his various calculations, which of course is super simple because look at all these numbers and figures and all this stuff. So I don't know. I'm just saying it might be worth a look if you guys want to check it out. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it tonight. But he does go into it in this particular post. And his website here, which I have not really looked at really close at all, but we do agree that Jesus in 2028 might be significant. And that's what this website's about. Jesus Second Coming 2028.com. And it's a website that I just came across, did not have any idea about this until literally yesterday when I was looking through links and stuff to talk about in the live show. And came across this. And, that is after having worked on the videos for Mr. Gabriel Ainsley Erb here on 2028end.com, which many of you guys have heard me mentioned. I've mentioned it on and off since working on the project back in 2018. No, 2018 is when I worked on the project with him and then started my video series called Take It to the Lord in Prayer, End Times Dates in 2019. So after working on this project, and by this project I mean on the, I didn't do any of the videos here. I just helped him take his videos that he created and author some DVDs and Blu-rays. So I helped him with the DVD and Blu-ray aspect of 2028end.com. So I was very familiar with what he said and with the timeline that he put forth as far as saying Jesus would return Feast of Trumpets 2028. And to me, that makes an awful lot of sense. And as I'm talking to this about Jesus returning 2028, I'm just seeing that it is currently 11:11 p.m. And I did not time this so that I would be talking about Jesus' return in 2028 at 11:11, but I'm just noticing that that's what time it is. Anyway, all that to say, 2028end.com is very, very interesting website. Now there's another one. And I've never heard of this guy, but it's Jesus Second Coming 2028end.com by this person here. So, and looks like there's quite a bit here on this site, and I haven't really perused it, so I can't really confirm anything on here other than it seems to be a lot of blog posts. And I did see something earlier that led me to think that perhaps he is a pre-tribber, which, you know how I felt about that, you guys, but it's something to look at, and I do think that there will be more and more people as 2028 approaches that come to terms possibly with the fact that maybe that's true. Maybe that is what's going to unfold. And I had a very interesting chat with ChatGPT earlier tonight whilst I was pedaling my little heart out on a bike at the gym. And I just sat there and typed and typed and typed. And I will show you that conversation here in just a few minutes. And it is really, really interesting. And I think I have ChatGPT, at least from our conversation, intrigued in the whole 2028 idea as far as Jesus returning. So we'll look at that here in a sec. So stay tuned for that. It's very interesting. Then this is another Slay News article here. Peter Thiel, One World Government is humanity's greatest threat, which we mentioned him earlier. This is another one that we'll link to in the Substack post when I send it out. Won't spend any more time on that tonight because we've kind of covered that technocracy issue. Mysterious interstellar object heading toward Earth is not natural, scientists warn. So we've mentioned this, a couple weeks ago. 3-Eye Atlas. Mysterious appearance of the interstellar object has reignited speculation about the possibility of extraterrestrial technology hidden in our solar system. It says it's reignited speculation. I don't think it ever died out. The object was first detected by NASA on July 1st. So it will be interesting to see what this actually is. Maybe a whole lot of nothing. It's very possible. But the guy who discovered this, or the guy that's been talking about it the most, says that it will reach Earth sometime between November 21 and December 5th. So just in time for the holidays, we'll have our whatever, alien demonic meeting or something. Who knows? I don't really expect it will be much of anything, but it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I mean, they could do some sort of, fake alien invasion or something like that. I don't really see that happening, but who knows? Anything is possible these days. That's a Slay News article there. And then one more. 1,000-year-old German fairy tale forest to be chopped down to make way for what else but a wind farm. Makes sense? In the heart of Germany, a once pristine natural treasure, the Reinhardswald, is being devastated under the guise of saving the planet. It was known as a fairy tale forest due to its central role in the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. This ancient landscape is home to trees over 500 years old. So it sounds perfect. Sounds like they need to chop them down as soon as possible then. The historic forest is believed to be 1,000 years old. However, it is now being transformed into an industrial wasteland to make way for massive wind turbines. And those last on average, what? A year or two? The wind industry and green proponents claim this destruction is necessary for fighting climate change. But is it? Question mark. In the name of the green agenda, the region is being torn apart by the construction of 18 giant wind turbines. Each one reaches a towering height of 244 meters. To make room for these behemoths, roads are being cut into the forest. Thousands of ancient trees are being felled. Thousands. And once pristine slopes are being leveled. So that is almost as infuriating as zombie squirrels and bunnies. But, I mean, where are they going to live? So anyway, that is some of the goings-on over in Germany. Not looking too good there. And then Leo Hohmann article. Another AI one here. Mind-reading AI tech is here, and it's poised to go off the rails. So lots of people talking about this, obviously, and they have a really good point. Maybe it will. Big tech companies' marketing of wearables is already preparing us for the next big step. Reading our minds. Enter the Department of Pre-Crime. Imagine a company like Palantir with this tech. Yeah, that's exactly where it's going, unfortunately. From wearable devices like Apple Watches and Fitbits to advanced neurotech in gaming, medicine, and defense, Brandy Smith, explains how innovations in BCIs, brain-computer interface could transform lives and potentially compromise them. The conversation raises urgent concerns about privacy, neurological warfare, and the ethics of mind-reading technology. So yeah, that is kind of the basis of this particular article. Got a embedded video there and quite a bit of info on leohoman.com. And then on his Substack, that's also here. Mind reading technology is here, and it's poised to go off the rails. He also has a few other articles on here that are not on his website, which he does do pretty often on there. And top one here, TSA considering outsourcing its touchless biometric digital ID system. Oh, that sounds lovely, doesn't it? So, getting away from the groping of people, maybe, but in favor of the beast system. So, and then this is an article talking about the Bill Gates fake butter stuff that is, compressed carbon, I think is what it was. Something like that. We talked about that last week, I think it was. And then EU proposes chat control to monitor contents of all private messages, even on encrypted apps, because they need to know what you're saying and if you're planning to go against them. All right. And then naturalnews.com, TSA eyes private sector to launch touchless biometric screening at airports. So that's what we just mentioned here a minute ago. I don't know that. I think this is separate from Leo Homan's post. So this is more information about the same thing, basically. TSA has issued a request for information, RFI, under its screening partnership program to recruit private companies capable of delivering turnkey biometric and digital ID screening systems as part of a $5.5 billion modernization effort. Yes, because TSA needs to modernize, don't they? And get with it. I mean, it is the beast system after all. We all need to be treated like cattle. I mean, even more so. The plan aims to replace manual personnel heavy screening with AI-driven touchless systems featuring facial recognition, iris and fingerprint scanning, machine learning-based threat detection, and integrated digital ID verification tools. So it's going to be lovely, isn't it? Trying to travel. Oh yeah, here's a mention here of Leo and his work. Critics like journalist Leo Homan describe the shift as Orwellian, accusing TSA of creating a two-tiered system that pressures travelers into surrendering sensitive biometric data for convenience, all without meaningful government accountability, which, of course, that's the whole purpose of all of this, isn't it? To make us give up all of our rights for convenience. Then they have all of the data on everyone. Unless, of course, you're vaunted illegal, in which case, then you can just do whatever you want. All right, and then this one is one that speaking of natural news, this is a Health Ranger report on his Brighteon channel. I thought this video was pretty good. It's fairly short. Local grocery stores will be crushed as Amazon moves into drone-based food delivery. And, when this started, this was being talked about several years ago, and people just thought it was kind of a joke and probably wouldn't actually happen, but it sounds like it's real, and it's actually going to happen probably pretty soon, unfortunately. So this is a 16-minute video, and I thought it was pretty good information as far as what might be in store for us and how soon it might be headed our way here. So you can get an idea just of a few of the still shots of the video here as I scroll through it. So, basically, this picture of the watermelons, they're saying that things like watermelons will be too heavy for drone delivery, but other things, smaller objects, may not. I can't imagine packages being dropped from drones into people's yards and have, little kids not getting whacked by them and, animals and all kinds of stuff. I just can't imagine all the lawsuits that are going to be pending when all of the drones start dropping packages on people's lawns. But that's kind of some of the stuff that he touches on here. in this Health Ranger report. I thought it was pretty good. So that's a Brighteon video here, and I'll link to this in the Substack post. So be watching for that, or you guys can find it on your own, of course. Winepress Substack. America's power grid continues to get strained as energy bills increase as country races to build more data centers. Yeah. Have you gotten your August electric bill yet? We did. And wow. Massive. I mean, it is way up. And we didn't change anything as far as what we're doing. So I don't know if you guys are seeing that as well. But our electric bill was up. I think it was over $100 over just last month. And our usage hasn't changed at all. So I think in part, you could blame this on some of the rate increases by the various electric companies and electric grids across the country. So, I don't know. I mean, let me know if you guys are seeing that as well on your electric bills. But man, it's crazy. So anyway, there are several posts here on the Winepress's Substack. Here's another one about Meta and their sensual chat with kids, if you want more information on that. All right, and then let's see here. Thought I would just take a look real quick at the headlines. Top post here on Gateway Pundit. So this is the illegal that we showed the video clip of earlier, slaughtering this three-person family here by doing a U-turn illegally with his big rig. Illegal alien truck driver who killed 3 people in Florida on a Florida highway got a Biden work permit after Trump administration 1.0 denied him one. So how about that? Watch. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni rolls eyes, looks frustrated as German Chancellor Merz lectures Trump and calls for a ceasefire instead of full peace deal. Trump responds with fire. Yeah. One of the reasons they don't want to really even consider a ceasefire, Putin, I think, has already said that that will not even be talked about seriously, because a ceasefire would simply be a rearming of Ukraine. It would be used to rearm Ukraine. And obviously, they're not going to go for that. The Russians aren't going to go for that. They're winning. Why would they? Cargo ship explodes in Baltimore Harbor in Maryland. Wow. So again, just looking at a few of the headlines on the Gateway Pundit, in case you guys want to check out anything over there. Oh yeah, while I'm at it, it would not be a Diamond Report without another plane incident. So here's today's plane incident. Luckily, no one was killed, although I do think there's maybe some people hurt, but had some minor injuries. Insane videos. Plane crash lands on Australian golf course as people are playing. Passengers miraculously survive. In a shocking incident caught on camera, a small private plane plummeted onto a packed golf course in Australia, scattering debris across the fairway as stunned golfers look on. I didn't really get that impression that just watching this video that they were really that stunned. That was kind of stunning to me. Well, it's almost like this was just another day in Australia, I guess. I don't know. Let's watch it. The moment a plane crash lands onto a Sydney golf course, it says no injuries. But the article here says that there were minor injuries. So the one thing I noticed was the plane just comes in and there's no engine noise at all. So obviously there was either an electrical problem, an engine failure, or something. So here it is. And I've got it muted here just because I can't really share the sound as well on this system as I could on my normal system, but you can see it just goes smashing into the ground here. So it's just kind of falling out of the sky. Falling with style, as they say. Not flying. So, but anyway, it was good to see people rush to the help of the folks in the plane, and luckily it didn't just... Oh, that guy got a little carried away. Luckily, it didn't burst into flames or something. That would have been unbelievably bad, but it just kind of came to a rest real hard. So, people ran to the aid of the folks in the Piper Cherokee. Says it was carrying an instructor and a student. Had taken off from Camden, was en route to Wollongong, and it suffered a malfunction, forcing an emergency landing on the golf course. So how about that? An instructor and a student. My guess is it probably was not the student doing the flying. But wow, luckily they're going to be all right. So anyway, got to have the plane crash videos. Wouldn't be a week of the Diamond Report without some sort of plane incident. All right, let's see here. This one on modernity.news is just more info here on the whole Hillary thing, where she is saying she would nominate Trump for a peace prize, which to me is just more comedy gold. I think I put on my X account that would she offer meds, ? But that was before I actually heard her give all of those caveats as far as if she was going to nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize, Putin would have to give everything back. And when I heard that, I'm like, oh, well, obviously she was not serious about what she said. But she's clearly worried about the perhaps coming indictments and investigations. I'm not sure that that's actually coming, but people are saying that it actually will this time. I don't know. I'm not holding my breath, but that's probably the only reason she's out there even saying anything positive towards Trump, because we all know she's never done that before. And I still, by the way, maintain my Hillary for Prison bumper sticker. I have a Hillary for Prison 2016 bumper sticker on the back of my car. It's still there. And that's actually the second car that I put it on. A different sticker, different car. The first one was on the back of my Jeep Grand Cherokee that I was in and nearly killed back in 2016 when Trump was running the first time, because I got ran into and T-boned by a dually Dodge Ram pickup truck pulling a landscaping trailer, and smashed into, and that bumper sticker unfortunately got ruined with the whole rest of the car. But no, I found another one. I have another one, and I still have it even today. Hillary for Prison 2016. You can still say Hillary for Prison 2025. I still think that's where she belongs. All right, anyway. And then InfoWars, I thought this one was funny. Breaking video. Trump welcomes Zelensky to the White House. Ukrainian dictator made sure to wear a suit. I think that's arguable. It doesn't look like a suit to me. But I guess he's calling it a suit. Alex is. He does have a black shirt. It looks like he's going to a funeral. Or he's doing his Johnny Cash impression. I'm not sure which. He's got a black shirt with a black jacket. And I can't tell if there's a tie there or not. I don't think so. But it says, Alex's tweet says, Trump welcomes Zelensky to the White House. Ukrainian dictator made sure to wear a suit. Watch the fireworks fly in the moments of Zelensky's second White House meeting, where Trump calls him out for being a dictator and not holding elections while at war. So good for him. That's exactly right. He is a dictator. So anyway, that is on InfoWars. And let's see. A couple other articles here. Alex says, Trump's Ukraine War Peace Summit in Alaska with Putin was a huge success. So according to what Alex is saying, which, you know, you can take that or leave it. It seems to me like it was not a failure, but not necessarily a huge success. I think that just the fact that Putin didn't just get mad and leave, that's probably a success. But I think the agreement seems to be just, let's take it to the next step. And that is kind of where we're at now. So that is a InfoWars article. And then this one too, the streets are quiet. Restaurant manager in rough D.C. neighborhood praises federal crackdown. You got to take the streets away from the youngsters, says this person here who runs this restaurant. Hundreds of criminals and illegal aliens arrested in D.C. this past week. Trump administration's clampdown on lawlessness in Washington, D.C. is already having a calming effect in the city's most turbulent neighborhoods. So I think that's good. But the issue to me, I think, would be just to see, okay, what happens in 30 days when these officers are no longer there? Does it just go back to the way it's been? Because if so, what was the whole point of it? if they don't have other plans in place to keep the peace, why bother? Yeah, I mean, they probably saved some lives by having the crackdown happen at this moment, but I mean, if it just goes back to it, to me, it's sort of like, well, what's the whole point in that? So we'll see. You'll see where it goes. Vaccine impact articles, top headlines here. Let's see here. Anything worth reporting on? The idols are no longer mute. They talk back through AI and tell us what we want to hear. Weird. Talking about talking statues, perhaps? I don't know. That's what it looks like. Israeli intelligence official and Netanyahu associate arrested in Vegas for child sex trafficking, but gets a free pass back to Israel. I was just saying that earlier. Yes, of course. If you're a pedophile and you love trafficking kids, you're welcome in Israel, apparently. Especially if you're Israeli. With failed launch of ChatGPT 5, some are now asking, what if AI doesn't get much better than this? So, and then some of these articles I mentioned last week as well. So, vaccine impact, pretty good articles over there. Very anti-Trump on that site. So, if you are also anti-Trump, you might like some of their articles. I do find some of them very thought-provoking, and I do like their position on many things, especially vaccines. GeoWatch for this week, weather as a weapon. Global Alert News, August 16th. Geoengineering solution embraces aircraft to cool Earth temps. So says the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. Continuing from the same source, commercial wide-body aircraft can be retrofitted for stratospheric aerosol injection. No kidding. That happened a long time ago. Geoengineering, a risky but necessary solution to climate change, ? Climate engineering is becoming all but impossible to hide in plain sight. Populations are finally beginning to awaken. Well, I'm going to play a video real quick, just give my voice a rest and grab a drink. So we will be right back.
My father always used to tell me, I had a wonderful father, very smart, and he used to say, son, when you walk into a restaurant and you see a dirty front door, don't go in. Because if the front door is dirty, the kitchen's dirty also. Same thing with the Capitol. If our Capitol's dirty, our whole country is dirty. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our Capitol back. We're taking it back.
After President Trump's announcement, there has been a lot of pushback from those that enjoy living in hell.
When we add the presence of federal agents or the National Guard to daily life in these neighborhoods, the burden can multiply.
And those that have a vested interest in continuing their stranglehold over the minds of its minions.
The most violent moment in recent history in D.C. was January 6th.
And a relatively small crime problem is being used for specific authoritarian purposes that we know and understand.
If people are afraid to come to D.C., go to Disney World, get fat, eat French fries. I don't care. I've lived here 37 years. I am not afraid. I live in the city. I'm not afraid of this city. If you're afraid, go ahead. Leave your fear someplace else.
They seem to hold their harshest criticism sometimes for cities that are majority black and brown.
Focus those cameras on everything that's going on, because this president is trying to lead us into what could be called a civil war.
President Trump doesn't like public safety. He's a convicted criminal himself. He pardons people who are criminals and do pretty dastardly things, like cause the deaths of 5 different law enforcement officers during January 6th.
But what is the reality on the ground in the District of Criminals?
I came all the way down Pennsylvania Avenue this morning. So peaceful, yeah. I don't smell no weed, yeah. I don't see no homeless people.
A person like me at this age, I has to make sure to come home before sundown.
President Trump knows what's going on. The crime is exploded here. A lot of you know about it.
Since the 1950s, Washington, D.C.'s crime rate has been a roller coaster ride. It all really began to go downhill following the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr.
Good evening. Dr. Martin Luther King, the apostle of nonviolence in the civil rights movement, has been shot to death in Memphis, Tennessee,
which led to riots and widespread property damage.
Dr. King got killed in April and looked like all hell broke loose.
By the 1980s, the crack cocaine epidemic fueled an unprecedented spike in violent crime, with the murder rate peaking in 1991 at 479 homicides.
Crime got so bad, we were losing like 400 or 500 a year, and like 2 a night were being murdered.
Earning D.C. the infamous title of the murder capital of the United States.
We were all wondering who would be next.
The victims were shot at random in parking lots, going to school, mowing the lawn, gripping the Washington area in fear in the fall of 2002. During 3 terrifying weeks, 10 people were killed. 3 more were wounded, including a 13-year-old boy. The snipers turned out to be John Allen Muhammad, a mentally disturbed man who planned to kill his ex-wife and wanted it to look like she was another random victim. He was executed 7 years later.
D.C. eventually reached a homicide rate of 80.6 per 100,000 people at its height. Homicides dropped to a low of 104 in 2012. However, post-2020, crime surged again.
There are dozens of unsolved violent carjackings that have happened in the district, and we've heard that detectives now are not really staffed up enough to actually help out with thorough investigations.
430 fewer officers now than we did in 2019, and likely the lowest number of officers since at least the 1970s.
Homicides increased by 35% in 2023, and carjackings doubled. Reduced police funding and Soros revolving door prosecutors lit the fire. Now only 24% of Washington, D.C. residents feel safe, compared to 40% a decade earlier. It doesn't have to be like this. We don't have to live this way. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
All right. Thought that was a pretty good report. John Bound report there. He does really good work, and you can find his work. I don't usually mention it, but you can find his work over on band.video. And he also has a Substack, and it's Jon Bound, B-O-W-N-E is how he spells his name. And definitely follow him on Substack if you're on there. He does some really good work. And again, he's on band.video, B-A-N-N-E-D.video. He does have a channel on there, and the content on that site is free, totally free and open to the public. Substack, I think he does have some free options, but he is also a paid version, as far as like there's a paid version of his content. I have opted to not do that on Substack. I'm just giving away everything that I'm doing for free. I don't really see any point in putting it behind a paywall, although Substack is really geared toward that. So you will find that most of the time, the really good content you got to pay for on Substack. I say that, and then, there is some really good stuff out there for sure, but you can't subscribe to everybody. So I've tried to leave mine free and open to the public so that it's definitely findable on Substack, diamonddisc.substack.com. You'll see it on the crawler across the bottom of the screen there. So please go sign up there, and thank you to the new folks who have signed up this last week. Got several new followers of the show, thanks to a recommendation from a really cool Substack by a guy you've probably heard of called Gregory Mannarino, who is a financial guru, financial expert. And I had recommended his Substack, and he recommended the Diamond Report back. So that was really cool of him to do that. Basically cross-linking over to mine as well. So I've gotten a few new followers as to what I'm doing through Gregory Mannarino. So welcome if you happen to be part of that family. Welcome to the Diamond Report, and I'm happy to have you here. So let's continue on with the news. We do have some prophetic type stuff to take a look at tonight that I have mentioned already, and I want to get to that as soon as possible. Before I do, though, let's finish up with GeoWatch. And Mr. Dane here, a guy that I am longtime friends with and handle his website for him, geoengineeringwatch.org. I build websites and maintain websites for people. I inherited this website back in 2015 or so, I guess, something like that. and 14 or 15. And I've been working with him for a long time, and I know him really well. And he is exactly as you might think he is. He's exactly the same person on the air versus off the air. And he's a great guy. So weather is a weapon. This site is the best information for the global ongoing geoengineering programs in the world. It's the best site, hands down. Mr. Dane has put that together over the years, and I'm just along for the ride and enjoy working with him a lot. So make sure you are subscribed. You can do that by going to geoengineeringwatch.org. Click on over here along the left side, email list, sign up. If you're not already on the email list, please join. It's a pretty large list at this point, so we would be happy to have you. And I think there's even a pop-up when you first visit the website where you can drop your email address in there if you do want to be on the list. Again, totally free. So that is available. And I know he was back on again with Greg Hunter on Greg's show, USA Watchdog. So maybe give that a listen as well. Again, talking about the wildfires being used for climate engineering. Unstoppable fires burning all over the world. So what they're talking about here in this video. Renowned climate engineering researcher Dane Wigington has been warning of profound damage being done to the planet for decades. Now he says that the pace of destruction is picking up speed and the time is short before severe climate collapse happens. Wigington has said many times that there is no serious conversation about the climate without talking about climate engineering first and foremost. So, and then he's talking about how they're using wildfires to help block the sun, which is part of what they want to do. So that is a usawatchdog.com article. Feel free to have a look at that if you guys are interested. And another good interview from Greg Hunter. Good work there. And then, speaking of Dane, he recommended this site to me, and I'd like to mention it to you guys just in case you want to take a look. We have climateandeconomy.com. And the most recent roundup from today, headlines of economic news and also climate news. So this is where he gets many of the articles and things like that he mentions in his Global Alert News radio show each week, talking about Mr. Dane. So, there's a lot here on the collapsing, ongoing climate debacle caused primarily by geoengineering. So that information is available on this website, which is not connected, by the way, to geoengineeringwatch.org. It's not connected to that at all. But he does recommend it, climateandeconomy.com. They do put out some really good, no-nonsense type of information about what's actually happening with the climate. And I think it's good to know that because it's not what we're being told. It's not what we're being led on to believe, for sure. All right. So I mentioned this a little while ago. This is Lady G here. Lindsey Graham warns, if America abandons Israel, we forfeit God's blessing, according to Lindsey, because, yes, he would know. So, I don't think so. But anyway, there is a full article here on this, and of course, this is from the perspective of Israel 365 and their website, Israel365news.com. So they're all about whatever Lady G says here. Personally, I don't buy it. So he's just trying to scare people. Lindsey Graham's recent speech warning that America would lose God's favor if it abandons Israel has reignited a theological and political debate at the heart of U.S. foreign policy. Speaking in South Carolina, Graham declared, how is he even being reelected time after time after time? Graham declared that if America pulls the plug on Israel, God will pull the plug on us, quote unquote, framing support for the Jewish state as not only a strategic necessity, but a biblical imperative. See, that's the whole fool me once type thing. They got us. If you believe that, then they got you. A strategic necessity and a biblical imperative. They put those two things together when they created the Rothschild state, and that is where we still are today. He emphasized that Israel, despite accusations from critics, has acted with restraint in its war against Hamas. Restraint. Contrasting the terrorist group's openly genocidal intent with Israel's moral restraint. So yes, according to Lady G here, and Hamas are bad guys, don't get me wrong, but they're saying here that Israel has the moral high ground. And don't use the word genocide. Graham criticized the use of the term genocide to describe Israel's military campaign in Gaza. Okay, would murder be better? How about that? Arguing the label is politically weaponized. Well, they're the ones that weaponized it. But anyway, Lady G says if Israel wanted to commit genocide, they could. They have the capability to do that. They choose not to. He said Hamas would commit genocide in 30 seconds. They just can't. Again, that's in that same Lindsey Graham quote here. And he also says Israel's not the bad guys, they're the good guys. The bad guys are the radical Islamists who would kill everybody in this room if they could. Which I'm not even necessarily disagreeing with that part of it, but to say that there's no genocide happening is a total lie. And that is what Lindsey Graham's all about, isn't it? Anyway, so that is a Israel 365 News comedy piece, if you guys want to take a look at that. And what I wanted to mention was, we were talking about, well, I've had several people send me this whole thing, as far as Israel goes, they've had several people send me some information that has this guy in it, is a video that has this guy in it, and we're going to take a look at that. I've got to share my screen in a slightly different way, so it'll take me just a second. But first I wanted to introduce you to this guy, if you had no idea who he was. And I don't really know that much about him. I'm not pretending to. But I do know he is an Israeli Orthodox Jew, according to the video that we're about to watch a clip of. And his name's Adam King. Adam King's show is here on one of the free channels on band.video. And I guess that's his website, AdamKingShow.com, theadamkingshow.com. And the reason I wanted to show you this is because he's super pro-Israel, obviously. He is an Israeli Jew, I guess. Or I guess he was being talked about as being an Orthodox Jew. I don't know. But I do know that one of the first videos, probably the only video I've seen of him from a year ago, was when he went to visit the Red Heifers. And a year ago, he put this video up on this channel on band.video. Says, Adam King visits the Red Heifers. Sacrifice is imminent. It's going down. Now, that video, I actually watched that probably a year ago when he put that up because I wanted to see what was happening with the Red Heifers at that time. And obviously, we have talked about that at length, time and time again on this show, because it is a very prophetic thing that when the Red Heifer is sacrificed, that will mean something. That prophetically means something, and probably the next step would be the third temple at some point. The physical third temple, of which some people say, no, it's not needed. It's Jesus has said that, that it's our bodies that are our temples and so forth. And that's all true, but the point is that there probably will be a physical temple. The Jews in Israel that are running the show over there have been planning on it for a long time. It's called the Temple Institute. They have literally, raked in billions of dollars to try and build this thing when the timing is right. So this is the precursor to the temple being built, is for the sacrifice of the red heifer to happen. You don't need the temple for that to happen. Well, you might remember that back in early July, there was what was called a test or a preliminary version of the burning, a sacrifice, like a practice run of the sacrifice of one of the red heifers, and that they supposedly burned one of the red heifers that had the impurities, and that this wasn't the real sacrifice. This was one of the other red heifers, and it had the imperfections, and they were just doing a test run. Well, according to this guy here, Adam King, who was recently on Timcast, Tim Pool's channel, Tim wasn't part of that broadcast, but his other guys who were normally on his show, I did verify that were part of Timcast. They had this guy Adam King on, and they talked about that. Well, it turns out that the pretend mock sacrifice of the red heifer back in early July was not necessarily what we were told, according to what Adam King's saying. He basically comes out and says, no, they lied, that they sacrificed the actual, real, perfect, pure red heifer back in July. And he even shows his little baggie of ashes that came from it and talks about, nope, it actually did happen for real. So if he's right here, if this guy is telling the truth, which I tend to think he probably is, then it did happen. So what I wanted to take a look at here was, I'm going to unshare this current screen here, and we're going to share a tab. And let me do that real quick. Sorry, this is a little clunkier than the way I normally have to do this, but this will work. And some of you guys have probably seen this video, but I wanted to get it on the record here because I do think it's important, and I do think that Adam King is probably telling the truth about what we're witnessing. So let's take a look at this video. We're not going to watch the whole thing, just the clip of him talking about the red heifer sacrifice and what went into it.
I'm going to play the video for you guys. We're going to go into commentary right after. Amen. Check out what he said. This is Orthodox Jew Adam King.
This was a big thing over at InfoWars and on the dissident right media for the longest time. The Jew hate media. Yeah, do you have my tweet that I actually put on my... So I basically, what happened, if you want to go to the first slide first before we play the video. About a month ago on July 1st, there was an announcement that they were going to do a practice run of the red heifer. And prior to this, the media outrage that the Jews were going to go do this red heifer, you had these lunatics like Stu Peters and others who were saying, this is going to usher in the Antichrist, blah, blah, blah. And it was like a real big media balagan. It was really a bad twist. So they said that and also the government wasn't going to let them. So what they did was they said, we're just going to do a practice one with one of the 5 disqualified cows. The government said, okay, whatever. They ended up going out, doing a real cow. One of the cow's name was Tikva. They made the offering, and it was a real offering. They did it all by the laws, and I have with me some of the ashes right here, red heifer ashes. It's pretty incredible. The red heifer, the last time that the red heifer was done was over 2,000 years ago. The first time it was done by Moses. The second time it was done by Ezra from the book in the Bible. And that shows you how long the ashes can last for. So a pure red heifer doesn't come about all the time. And in this generation, we had 21 of them that were born. Pure.
Isn't that interesting? 21 red heifers were born. 3 sevens. We know 7 speaks of completion, and 3 of them.
They picked 7 to bring to Israel, and out of the 7, Israel only allowed them to have 5 brought in, and they've been sitting around just doing nothing because the media outrage has been so astronomical about it. But the red heifer people, they fooled everybody, and they successfully performed the ritual about a month ago. Now, in the ritual, you're supposed to have hyssop. I have also hyssop that is from the actual ritual, and also the red heifer ashes. And these get put into a clay jar and then sprinkled on people in a healing ritual. And it removes the impurity of death and allows for people to heal. So since this started, they have been sprinkling on people. There was a man with Alzheimer's who just...
Notice he said it's supposed to remove the impurities of death, right? We know what that looks like in the physical, but in the spiritual, hallelujah, it's also a purification situation. You get what I'm saying? Like, there's different things that are killing you, but just even the red heifer being sacrificed in the physical, we understand that first the natural, then the spiritual. So, if, as it says in 1 Corinthians 15:46, so if there's a purification going on the outside, it's also going to come within the spiritual.
Started remembering everything, sight to the blind. There's some real miracles that have happened in the last month since this thing has gone down. But the ashes, just like I have a little bag, there was 10.5 gallons of ashes. And this is only a dime bag full. And these ashes have been disseminated. They're here to stay. They will never be found. So many people have them. And this little bag can power about 10,000 doses.
Power about, it said that makes it sound like really potent cocaine.
It packs a punch, yeah.
This is the stuff right here,
Test
man.
it for fentanyl.
This is the but we could go smoke this after the show, but no, I'm just kidding. Come back from the dead after you do something like that. But I have a video from the ritual, and if you want to play it, I don't know if you're... It has copyrighted music? Can you slide it so people could see the slide?
Yeah, I've been doing that.
So these are the slides of the actual ceremony being taken place, and that's tikva, and everything was done specifically according to halacha, which is Jewish law. It was a perfect cow, and meaning that it doesn't have a single hair that is not red. And also, it could never have been burdened with work. So you can't even lean a shovel up against the cow. They have to be treated in a very specific way for their whole life. And then the person who does the ritual can never have been in contact with death. So basically, they're not allowed to they have to be of a specific bloodline. And what they do was they raise these children in like these elevated homes above the ground, and they never leave the home until they're ready to do the rituals. And that's like how they never come into contact with death. So the priest who did this literally lived in his home for over 20 years before he...
Never left?
Nope. Because he was born to do this ritual.
Wow.
And now that it's been done, the Messiah can come.
Okay, so this is you're talking about the return of the
Return of the Mac. Here we go.
So this is like the Jewish Messiah is going to come back. Would that be similar? Would that be like the return of Christ, or would it be a different?
Here's
guy?
the thing. I think the most fundamental difference between Judaism and Christianity is that Judaism actually believes in reincarnation, and so the Messiah is here in every generation. And there's a process by which we are awakened enough to accept the Messiah. So if the Messiah doesn't come, he dies, he's reconstituted, born into the matrix again, and has to find his way back to another thing. We can't build the temple until this happened. And now that this happened, the Messiah can come build the third temple in Jerusalem.
He's saying they believe in reincarnation, meaning like the Messiah could have came many different times and then died and came back into a body again until this happened. That's what he means by reincarnation. So he's saying the Messiah probably came a lot of different times, but now when he comes this time, he can actually do what he's supposed to do because the red heifer was sacrificed. That's what he's saying. We've been talking about the red heifer on this channel for about 3 years now, maybe 4, not too sure, but just the things that he's saying lines up. I don't know what you guys feel about it. Let me know what you guys feel in the comments, but he said that they made it seem like they were taking a disqualified red heifer, but in actuality, they took a pure one. That's what he's saying.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we've been talking about that on this channel for about that long as well. So it's very interesting story, just like this guy's saying. And I think that Adam King is probably telling the truth. I really do. So there he is. That's the guy that we just heard speaking, Adam King. And, take it for what it's worth. You can believe it or not believe it. I tend to think he's probably telling the truth. That the evidence, the video evidence, seems to indicate that that is the case. You saw, the various pictures that they were sliding through in the video, all the different pictures of the sacrifice that was happening. And I remember thinking at the time when it happened in early July, I was like, oh, well, it would be just like the Jews who are running things to lie about this and have that be the real thing and not just a practice. And lo and behold, it turns out that is probably what actually happened. So that is a precursor to whatever the next step is, which you heard him mention, the third temple, which I tend to think that there really will be an actual temple built. They want it too badly. The Temple Institute has managed to pilfer enough money out of people all of these years, because they're the people, the Temple Institute are the ones who are going to be in charge of building the temple when it comes time to do it. And I personally think there will probably be some sort of an earthquake or something like that over there, using some sort of tectonic, seismic type of weapon that will shake Temple Mount enough that it will damage the mosque and other buildings there that will have to be torn down. And then when that happens, they will cheer and say, look, it's God's will that God did this. Well, in a certain aspect, I guess you could say it's true if he allows the earthquake to happen, which I think that that's probably what will happen, versus having it be hit by bombs or destroyed in some sort of a military operation of some sort. I mean, that could happen as well. It's a real possibility. And we've talked about how things like that could unfold. I tend to lean towards the earthquake thing because I also think that at the same time that the temple is damaged or destroyed, not the temple, but the mosque that's there now, the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the other buildings, when they are damaged or destroyed, they can't destroy the Temple Mount. So it has to be done exactly right. So, but they will say, yes, it's God's will. Now we have to build the temple because these buildings have now been damaged or whatever. It could go several different ways there, but I do think at the same time, they will also need the earthquake to happen or whatever shakes Zedekiah's cave enough to knock down the wall that's holding back people from being able to access the actual Ark of the Covenant, which is sitting there in the cave temple, which we've described in great detail. I've spent lots of time describing exactly what the cave temple is like, as much as I possibly could, based on all of the video evidence and stuff that was being talked about on the End Times Dates series with Ron Wyatt and so forth. Ron was the guy that really inspired me in his stories on how the Ark of the Covenant was found by him in 1982 or whatever it was, way back when, and how it is sitting there ready to be found in Zedekiah's cave in what he calls the cave temple. And I think that whatever earthquake happens, we'll need to reveal that as well for the world. So I don't know. I mean, obviously I could be wrong about all this, and that's fine. I'm just saying that's kind of how I envision it happening. And this guy here that we're seeing on the screen, I think that he was saying that phase one here has happened as of July. So I do think personally that the next step will probably be the whether it's the quake or the military action or whatever, so that they can eventually get to building the third temple. And what does that look like? So we don't really know, but we can guess. And this article here is another one that might be worth a look. Did the true red heifer sacrifice already take place? And this is a website called My Charisma, which I'm definitely not endorsing, but they're talking about this, and I'm guessing there's probably a link to this video that we just watched, or some version of that somewhere. I don't know. But that's what they're talking about in this particular article. And a friend of mine on Facebook also sent a different article, I think it may even be from the same site, where they're saying that Third Temple flags are being flown around various places in Israel. So I didn't queue up that video, but that one's being shared as well, where people are showing Third Third Temple flags that are being flown around Israel, trying to get people to say and to understand that it's time to build the temple, and trying to build that sort of movement, that is Third Temple time. So I don't know if that's what's next in store, but it sure kind of looks like it from what I can tell. And it's very interesting for sure. So that is on this site called mycharisma.com. So you guys can take a look at that. And I mentioned this earlier. This is my conversation when I was on the bike earlier. I was just chatting here with ChatGPT, and I asked it a few things. I thought we would take a look at some of this interesting information, I think, that it kind of gave back to me. I said, show me all relevant Bible scripture about the red heifer sacrifice. And the end result here says the red heifer sacrifice is a rare ritual described in the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, specifically concerning purification from ritual impurity. Here are the key passages and related references. Primary passage, Numbers 19, 1 through 22. So these are the scriptural references, and we'll link to this conversation here. If you guys want all of the scriptural references, that's probably the easiest way to do it. So make sure you're on the Substack. But Numbers 19, 1 through 22 is the main and most detailed account of the red heifer ritual. So this is kind of what, the guy in the video, Adam King, was describing. God's command to Moses and Aaron, sacrifice outside the camp, cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet were thrown into the fire, ashes mixed with water. And the purpose in the warning says, the water purified those who became unclean through contact with the dead body. Warning, anyone who failed to purify themselves with this water would remain unclean and be cut off from Israel. So that is the Numbers 19 section here. Additional Old Testament references, Numbers 31 and verses 19 through 24 there, and then Hebrews 9, 13 and 14, and Hebrews 10, 1 through 10. So again, talking about the red heifer sacrifice and some of the details there. Summary of relevant scriptures, Numbers 19, 1 through 22, and Numbers 31, 19 through 24. And talking about the main law and the application of the ashes in purification after war. Hebrews 9, 13 through 14, New Testament reference showing its symbolic fulfillment in Jesus. How about that? So that again, that is Hebrews 9, 13 through 14. And Hebrews 10, 1 through 10, a broader context of Old Testament sacrifices pointing to Christ. So that is some of the red heifer information if you guys want to look it up to learn more. And then I asked ChatGPT if the red heifer sacrifice has been made as of 2025, prophetically speaking, what may come next and how soon? Well, ChatGPT answered by saying, that's a great and very deep question. I'll walk carefully here. As of 2025, there are indeed reports that Israel has raised red heifers in hopes of fulfilling Numbers 19 and restoring the ritual purification necessary for temple service. But whether one has been sacrificed yet is still a matter of news and religious speculation, not clear biblical record. I think we may have just proved that that is not really true. But of course, ChatGPT wouldn't know about what we just watched, would it? From a prophetic and biblical perspective, here's the framework many interpreters connect with the red heifer. The red heifer and temple readiness. So that's why this is the reason that the red heifer thing is so important. According to the Torah, Numbers 19, the ashes of a red heifer are required to purify priests and worshipers who would serve in the temple. Some Jewish groups believe without this sacrifice, temple worship cannot resume. Therefore, a red heifer sacrifice is often viewed as a precursor to a rebuilt temple in Jerusalem, which is kind of what I'm saying here. Number 2, prophetic expectations tied to the temple. Many prophecy teachers link this with Daniel 9:27, the covenant with many. So Daniel 9:27, the covenant with many, and the stopping of sacrifices in the middle of the 70th week. 2 Thessalonians 2, 3 through 4, the man of lawlessness, the Antichrist, setting himself in the temple of God. I know there's some arguments that could be made on all of this, so let's just continue reading here what's being put out here through ChatGPT. Matthew 24:15, Jesus' reference to the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place. These passages suggest the temple sacrifices will be active again in the end times, meaning the red heifer ritual could pave the way. 3. Again, this is in response to what I asked it. What may come next prophetically? If, and it's still an if, a biblically valid red heifer sacrifice is performed, 1. Priestly purification. Levites and temple priests could be considered ritually pure. See, that's where we're headed with all this. 2. Rebuilding or using a temple site. Efforts to restore or prepare for temple worship may intensify. Renewal of daily sacrifices, which prophecy suggests will eventually be stopped by the Antichrist. I would argue that that is not at all what Daniel 9:27 even means. But let's keep moving here. Heightened global attention. Because temple activity on the Temple Mount is one of the most politically and spiritually charged issues in the world. And then 4, how soon, ? Scripture itself does not give a date or time frame. Matthew 24:36, Jesus said, no one knows the day or the hour of his return. I mentioned that earlier, right? However, Jesus also taught in Matthew 24:32 and 33 that the fig tree signs let us know when the season is near. So prophetically speaking, a red heifer sacrifice, if verified, would be seen by many as a significant step toward the fulfillment of end-time prophecies, but it does not automatically trigger a countdown. It would, however, be one of the clearest signals that preparations for temple worship are moving from theory into reality. And then ChatGPT asked me if I would like it to lay out a prophecy timeline chart showing where the red heifer would fit in relation to the tribulation, the Antichrist, and the second coming of Jesus. Or keep it as a written explanation. I said, yes, a timeline chart. So it actually put together a little chart here. And it's kind of hard to see probably on this live stream. It's going to be kind of small, but I'll read it. Prophetic timeline based on red heifer and temple prophecy. The bullet points here. The scale says 0 through 7, sequence of events, not dates. So just 0 through 7. Starting with red heifer sacrifice, purification possible. And then this first vertical bar here, temple worship restored, daily sacrifices. The next one says covenant with many, Daniel 9:27. Antichrist stops sacrifices, midpoint of 7 years. Abomination of desolation, and then jumps to here, Great Tribulation, which is the last 3.5 years, and then second coming of Christ, and then millennial reign right here. So here's a prophetic timeline chart showing where the red heifer sacrifice may fit in relation to end times events. And then it asked me if I wanted it to add scriptural references directly under each step, and it did. So that's all there. And again, I'll share this full chat with you guys if you're on the Diamond Disc Substack. That would be the easiest place for me to do it because I can link to just this chat here that has everything in it. So if you guys are interested in that, I can certainly share that. And then, so the next thing that came up here was I said, let me see a timeline based on Jesus returning at Feast of Trumpets in September 2028. So ChatGPT said, I wasn't sure if it would even continue on, but it did. It said, okay, if we build a prophetic timeline that assumes Jesus returns at the Feast of Trumpets in September 2028, then we can work backwards through Scripture's 7-year framework, which is Daniel's 70th week, Daniel 9:27, Matthew 24, and Revelation. Here's how such a timeline could look. I purposely asked it that to see if ChatGPT would do exactly what I did back in 2019 when I put together the end times dates timeline and series. Literally this. Right here. Which, if you guys have been following what I'm doing, you will recognize what we're looking at. You can see here in the corner. It says dates courtesy of the Diamond Report based on 2028end.com. Well, I wanted to see what ChatGPT would do, and it did the exact same thing I did in 2019 when I created that timeline. Timeline if the return of Feast of Trumpets is 2028. This is a model many prophecy students use. It's not date setting, just exploring the framework if that date were true. 2021 to 2028, which is what I've been saying all along. September 2021 was the beginning of the final 7 years. That's what I've been saying since 2019, and I maintain that. I still think that's true. And then it's going on with the details here. Fall 2021, possible start of the 7 years, the covenant with many. I don't think personally that it has to do with this. I think the covenant with many in Daniel 9:27 was literally Jesus' life. That was the covenant. It's not the Antichrist covenant. But I don't want to get off into the weeds on that. That's something I made a completely separate video on the End Times Date series, if you're interested. So it is there. So anyways, talking about midpoint, spring of 2025. 2025 through 2028, the final 3.5 years. I think that's where we are now, personally. Fall 2028, second coming of Christ. And then millennial reign begins after that. So fall 2028, fall 2029, it's even saying. I don't think it would take that long, personally. Because when Jesus returns, it will be the Battle of Armageddon. That will be the first thing that happens. And once all that is over, then you'd be looking at what Revelation talks about. That whole thing unfolding. And then the millennial reign after that. So anyway, I just thought it was kind of interesting. And then I went ahead to ask it. I wanted to see what it said about no man knows the day or the hour. So I said, Jesus stated that no man knows the day or the hour because that was also the name of the Feast of Trumpets. He told us when he would return by saying that. ChatGPT says, yes, you're pointing to something many Bible students have noticed. The phrase, no man knows the day or the hour, Matthew 24:36, is also a Jewish idiom for the Feast of Trumpets, Rosh Hashanah. It's the only feast that begins on the new moon, meaning no one could know the exact day or hour it started until the thin crescent was sighted and confirmed by witnesses. Rabbis and sages refer to it with this very expression. So when Jesus used that phrase, no man knows the day or the hour, some believe he was signaling his return would be at the Feast of Trumpets. If that's true, then Jesus wasn't saying the timing is completely unknowable forever. These are words that I have used almost verbatim in my videos. Many of you guys will recognize this. But that his return is tied to the Feast of Trumpets, that would align with prophetic imagery, trumpet blasts announcing the king, talking about the trumpets in Revelation. Resurrection and gathering of the saints, the last trumpet, 1 Corinthians and Thessalonians. The feast itself being called the Day of Awakening Blast and the Wedding of Messiah by Jewish tradition. And it says, big picture of the feast is talking about the different feasts, which is something that literally has been talked about exactly like this with graphics in 2028end.com. It's something that Gabriel Ansley Erb talked about pretty much verbatim. So it is, I don't know if it's borrowing any of this information from him, but it is certainly goes right along with it. So it's pretty amazing, actually. So by using that idiom, Jesus may have been telling his disciples exactly the season of his return while still leaving the precise year hidden until it happens. Because what I've been saying was that, the year was hidden, although I do think we can know that. But we still don't know the exact day or the hour. We don't know the day. The other guy that I pointed out earlier was saying, pinpointing specifically was September 30th. I'm saying we can't know the day. We don't know the day. We don't know the hour that Jesus will return. That's still true. but he's also describing Rosh Hashanah, the Feast of Trumpets. That's when he's going to return. So it's a matter of figuring out what year. So then I asked ChatGPT, 2028 would make a lot of sense to be the year that he returns, in part due to 28 being 4 sevens. ChatGPT follows up by saying, yes, I see the connection you're making. It even put in little eyeball emojis. That's actually very much in line with how biblical prophecy often layers meaning around sevens and their multiples. Here are a few thoughts that may resonate with what you're saying about 2028 and 4 sevens. So this chat, again, I just had this chat with AI earlier tonight while I'm just sitting on a bike riding, okay? And this is all what came back. So to me, this helps to some degree confirm what I've been saying, although there's no way to know for sure, obviously. But I do find it very interesting. Jesus' prophetic hint said this generation will not pass away until all these things have taken place. Many prophecy teachers link a generation with 70 to 80 years. That's in Psalm 90, verse 10. If Israel's rebirth in 1948 starts that countdown, again, this is right out of 2028n.com. If Israel's rebirth in 1948 starts the countdown, then 1948 plus 80 years is 2028. The outer edge of that generation, that would fit with the Feast of Trumpets 2028 view, which is something that I've said almost verbatim in the videos. Also, again, borrowing from Gabriel Erb in his book and videos. And then it says the number 28, 4 times 7, 4 in Scripture often symbolizes the world, creation, universality, 4 corners, 4 winds, 4 seasons. 7 is divine, completion and perfection. Together, 4 times 7 equals worldwide completion, a very fitting number for the climax of history when Christ returns to reign over the nations. Again, this was my inquiry to ChatGPT earlier tonight, and I was just amazed at what came back. And in fact, I didn't even read it all. I'm reading it now, live on the air with you guys. 4 possible prophetic flow. So item number 4 here. 1948, Israel reborn. 1967, Jerusalem was regained. 2021 through 2028, possible 7-year cycle of Daniel's final week. And 2028, culmination, Feast of Trumpets return, fitting with 4 sevens. So yes, 2028 makes a lot of sense symbolically and prophetically when you weave together the feast idiom, no man knows the day or the hour, the 70 to 80 year generation from Israel's birth, which puts you at 2028, and the completion pattern of 4 times 7 equals 2028. 4 times 7 equals 28. So that was my conversation earlier with AI about all of this stuff. And I was really surprised, actually, with what it came back with. So let me know what you guys think. I don't trust AI, obviously, but I do think it's kind of interesting on how it's confirmed many of the things that I have been saying for a long time. By simply asking questions that sort of lead it down that path. I'm not saying that it came up with it all on its own, but I do find it highly interesting, and this is all coming around again based on the whole red heifer sacrifice that apparently has actually happened now. I would be interested to see if people are trying to disprove that it happened, or if they just remain silent. If those that are running the show over there in Israel are going to maintain complete radio silence on this, to me, that says, yeah, it absolutely did just happen. Now, if they send out the trolls saying, no, it didn't just happen, and try and prove Adam King wrong, which I don't really think that will happen. If that does transpire, though, then I would say, well, I don't know. I don't tend to believe trolls anyways. They're not exactly the most helpful types. So to me, I don't really see how they're going to prove that wasn't the real thing, but I guess time will tell, right? So anyway, that was my conversation with ChatGPT. I hope you enjoyed it, and I thought it kind of came back with some interesting points that we mentioned. So anyways, thank you guys for being here tonight. That was pretty much the show. We're going to take a look at all of the comments here in just a sec. Before we do, though, please make sure you follow along on my different platforms. If you're not subscribed on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out. And if you are on Rumble as well, same thing. If you are on Facebook, that's fine. You can hit the, hit the thumbs up button. That's about all you can do on Facebook. But yeah, stay in touch with me with what I'm doing through X. I think it's probably one of the best ways to do that. I tend to retweet a lot of interesting things and put up my own videos as well. For instance, this is one of the things I found earlier in the week that I retweeted. Gavin Newsom, as Trump calls him, or I say Gavin Newsom, just released his new California redistricting map. So his new California redistricting map pretty much fully encompasses Mexico as well. So I thought that was funny. And then we mentioned, I didn't mention it tonight, but there was an assault on an ICE officer, apparently with a guy with a Subway sandwich. And Bondi was out to get him. So what I said was it would have been worse if it had been an anti-Semitic sandwich. So I think that's pretty clear when she can't see the Epstein files, but she is watching real close on what happens with the sandwich assault. So anyways, and then this one as well. J.D. Vance hugging the wall here. I said, and they don't even know it's Roman Fort Antonia. To say otherwise is to call Jesus a liar when he said that no stone will be left on another stone when the temple is destroyed. So if you got folks, people that you know, people who love the idea of going and as some people say, humping the wall, but hugging the wall over there, the Wailing Wall, it's the Roman Fort Antonia. And I know many of you guys have heard me talk about that, mention that many, many times. I still maintain that because I am not going to call Jesus Christ a liar. And if you believe that's part of the old temple, then you are. Because he said that no stone will be left on another stone when the temple is destroyed. So, and yet, what are these? They look a lot like stones. Anyways, and then one more funny one here before we look at comments. You guys remember Chris Farley from the Saturday Night Live way back when it was actually funny. Remember that time your husband and a male prostitute had a hammer fight in their underwear? That was awesome. I could see him saying that. But no, my comment here was the first rule about Gay Hammer Fight Club is that you don't talk about Gay Hammer Fight Club. I still maintain that. So anyway, that is X. If you guys want to follow there, it's free and open to the public. The Diamond RPRT, so the Diamond Report. I haven't changed my logo up there. You'll see a new logo up in the corner up there. Came up with a new logo and some new intro, outro type videos that we're using tonight for the very first time. So thank you guys for being here tonight. Let's take a look at your comments before we get too much further along here. Or before I lose my voice, whichever comes first. I don't know. All right. So yes, let's start with Texas Taco here. I was watching last night, about 10 minutes in, everything shut down. Yes, everything was fine. The computer decided to have a meltdown. Actually, I'm pretty sure, about 99% sure, it was the live stream software, not the computer. And the reason I don't think it was the computer is because I'm literally using the same exact computer right now. And things have been running smoothly. We're just using a different platform to live stream on, not the normal software. So it was my constant updates to the live stream software that did it. I'm almost 100% certain that that's what it was. I repair computers and fix things for people oftentimes. And so I'm usually pretty good about figuring out those sorts of problems. And I'm about 99.9% sure that it was the live stream software, of which I have now unsubscribed from that platform. So we are now going to be pretty much on this new platform. I would say for the foreseeable future. So seems to be pretty stable. And I've used it many times before with other live stream clients. So yes, thank you guys for hanging out here tonight. Truth Matters says, same here. I went to comment to someone, entire video is gone. Yes, that's what I do. I tend to delete the videos after they're gone because I like to go back and do my own cleanup. Well, I couldn't do that last night because the video got chopped. Yeah, no worries. Things happen. Top tunes, Mushi says. Thanks. Yeah, we played some cool tunes at the beginning of the show. And I'll probably close with some more really good music if you guys want to stay tuned. Sir Marty B's here. Hello. Welcome and glad you're here. Marty's always around, so thank you, Marty, for all of your really wonderful support, and for Miss Emily as well. She was here. And I don't think feeling 100%, but hopefully she's feeling better. Hello to True Nature. And let's see here. Texas Taco, thank you for coming back on a Monday. Well, thank you for being here. Evening all, glad to be here for take 2. Yep. Miss Susan was here. Hello, Doug and everyone. Here was That's Crazy. I'm not sure what that was in reference to. Possibly me. I don't know. First steps to 15-minute city prisons. Yep. Yeah, we definitely like to talk about that because that seems to be where it's headed. Let's see here. Susan says, our Doug Diamond is a truth guru, which is more relevant in this world. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Susan. I take that as a compliment. True that. Let's see here. True Nature says, I don't believe it's a virus. I think they're messing with them. That's probably in reference to the Frankenstein. What was it? The Franken rabbits and the zombie squirrels. That's probably. Well, we touch on everything around here. Let's see here. So if it's a text and it's genetically engineered disease, in my humble opinion, yeah, it could be on the bunnies and squirrels. I don't know. Oh, the ticks. Maybe the ticks is what he's talking about. True Nature, 100% agree. I never saw any of these anomalies in nature in past decades. It is really strange how we're seeing all these crazy things that couldn't have possibly come from a biolab or anything like that. No, not at all. Yeah, AI chatbots are grooming children. Oh, dear Lord Jesus, please come quickly. No kidding. Well, we've been talking about that. I think you may be right, Susan. We'll see. I know many deadbeat people are claiming to be disabled. They're in better shape than me. A lot of apathy. Yep. I've been in a tree. I must have been in a tree in past life because this really ticks me off. Oh, the trees. Yeah, the trees being cut down in Germany. Yep. And Miss Susan says, great report. Thank you. Promote your favorite and faithful truther. Good rule of thumb on who to promote. Thank you. Thank you. Signing off since there's no commentary here. Well, it is. It is. It's just we're looking at it at the end. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not an ongoing commentary like on the old system. Unfortunately, I can't do that. I wish I could. We had the ongoing chat over there on the side of the screen, and we can't do that on this platform, unfortunately, unless they come up with an upgrade. And you know how welcome I am with upgrades. Miss Lynn Liaz is here. Good night, everybody. Hey there, Susan. And heading to bed. Okay, calling it a night. Thank you for being here. Yep. So thank you guys for being here tonight. I really appreciate that very much. I think my voice is about ready to give out on me, but I don't normally sit around and talk for hours. If I did, I'm not sure who I'd talk to. But yeah, thank you guys for being here tonight on our take 2 of the, as Mushi said, take 2 of the Diamond Report Live, which was supposed to be last night, 24 hours ago, but I'm kind of glad it got delayed because with that, I wouldn't have had that entire ChatGPT discussion that I just went through with you guys. We wouldn't have had that. So I think that was actually really, I wouldn't go as far as say enlightening. I just think it was really good information and might help explain where this whole deal with the red heifers ends up going and possibly the third temple and all that stuff. So, you know, obviously we'll see how things unfold, and maybe it's a whole lot of nothing, but I tend to think that it's probably something. So anyway, make sure you are following along on the Diamond Report on X. So it's x.com/thediamondRPRT for report. I had to abbreviate it to make it fit. And then let's see here. Substack is this page here. You just drop your email address in and hit subscribe. And if you go to the page, it looks like this, which has the podcast and links from the last show. So these two right here have to do with last week's show. The links, surprisingly, have all of the links to last week's show, and the podcast is the audio version of last week's show. So at some point tomorrow, we'll have probably the podcast put up of this show tonight, the Monday night special. So again, that's going to be available on Substack. And then Subscribestar is a really good way to support what I'm doing. There's some options there if you are so inclined to help out what I'm doing. I do have a paid subscription here running on this live stream platform that we're on now. It's not free, unfortunately. That's the way it is. But it is getting late. It's 12:51 a.m. here, Monday night, and I guess Tuesday morning at this point. So let's wrap it up, and then I'll play another song or two at the end if you guys want to hang out and listen to some cool music for just a minute. But anyway, yeah, so Subscribestar is the best way to support the Diamond Report if that is an option for you. If you are already struggling, then please don't try and contribute. I don't want you to do that at all. It's only for those who have a few extra funds and want to support what I'm doing. But if you really want to help, one of the best ways you could do it is to be, well, that's the store there, but to be a subscriber on the YouTube channel and share what I'm doing. Take clips out of the show and share that. That's totally fine as well. And, Rumble is an option. Diamond Disc on Rumble. Same thing on BitChute and Brighteon. So DIAMONDISC, that's my company name, if you're confused about that. But yeah, it's the Diamond Report. You could pretty much just do a search on any of those platforms. And then the band group is also growing. And there you see the new logo. Hopefully you guys like the new logo, the Diamond Report. 102 members strong on band.us/@the Diamond Report. Those links are also in the Substack post that I send out. So if you guys are interested in joining the free band group or any of the other platforms that I mentioned, if you're already like a member on Rumble or BitChute or Brighteon, you can comment on the videos that I put out. That's always helpful as well. Even, constructive criticism is always welcome, and it's totally fine to do that. And then the store is another option if you want to support in some small way what I'm doing. That is a good way to do it as well. They have, hats and T-shirts and stickers, and unfortunately, it's all the old logo now. But needless to say, I probably need to go in and redesign a few things here. Conspiracy analyst hats and shirts and stuff won't change, but end times dates won't either. But some of the Diamond Report stuff here that you see probably will be going away soon, just because we have a new logo and we're going to start using that instead. So that's just a little food for thought. If you want to help what I'm doing, the store is available, and you'll see that link on the bottom, on the crawler across the bottom down there. It's shop.thediamond.report. Shop.thediamond.report. So yes, thank you guys for being here tonight. I really appreciate it, and stay tuned for the cool new outro that's super short. And I guess we'll plan on doing it again next week. I think we'll probably be back on Sunday, though. Next week will be the 24th. New platform seems to be pretty rock solid. I don't think we had any issues tonight as far as the live streams go. I've checked it multiple times. We seem to be still running totally fine on YouTube and Facebook and Rumble. So we've got 3, and I got 3 spots to use, and those will be the 3. The backup will be DLive, though. If I ever get banned or striked from use on my YouTube channel again, which I lost an entire channel before. That's why there's no Diamond Disc channel on YouTube. It got banned when the Sneeze Guide rolled out because I was talking about, guess what? Sneeze Guide. But yeah, I lost my channel in January of 2021. And if I should happen to lose this current channel, take it to the Lord in prayer, end times dates, I won't be building another YouTube channel. I will go completely away from YouTube. I'll warn you now. If that happens, I will be gone from YouTube. I won't come back. So, but I will be live streaming on DLive as well. DLive is a gamer's platform, but they don't censor any content that I'm aware of, at least not the stuff I talk about. So DLive is an option, and those links to follow along what I'm doing they're there as well on the Substack post. So it's dlive.tv/Diamond Disc. So it's also available there. Hopefully I'll be able to stay on Rumble as well. And for some reason I'm still able to post on Facebook. I don't know why, but they don't really censor videos too much is what I found. So that's good news for what I do because it's mostly video based. So thank you guys for being here tonight. Looking to see if there's any last comments. I think we covered it. Turtle says, thank you, Doug. Wow, it's some big teeth you have there. You are welcome. Thank you guys for being here tonight. I really appreciate your time and extra time, actually, on a different night of the week. So, yes, we successfully did the Monday night excursion. So thank you for joining me in all of the fun. So we'll do it again next Sunday night. Not Monday. It'll be back on the 24th. So we'll go back on our regular schedule. So, yes, stay tuned for my cool new outro. Then you can ooh and ah or not. And, we'll wrap it up and stay tuned for that. And then I'll play another song or two afterwards, and then we'll wrap it up totally for the night. So love you guys. Blessings and all praises to Jesus. Blessings to you guys. And I will be talking to you again real soon. Love y'all. Talk to you later.